So without further ado, let's go ahead and get right into the second part of our three-part cybersecurity class. So if we take a look at the agenda, you can see we're going to be covering internet scams and fraud today. It's the entire subject today because it covers a lot of, it's a broad subject. So just a quick refresher. Last week we talked about what cybersecurity is, which is the protection of internet-connected systems, including hardware, software, and your data. We talked about a few identity theft statistics. So 47% of Americans, that's almost half of Americans, experienced financial identity theft in 2020. And then consumers lost more than 56 billion, with a B, to identity theft and fraud in 2020. Those are just a few of the many statistics you see here. We talked about how longer passwords are stronger passwords and how you should aim for having a password between 10 and 12 characters. You should always make sure to put numbers and symbols in those passwords, and to make sure that you don't use common dictionary words or common names. For example, Michael, you put like a 1, 2, 3 after it. It's probably not a secure password because it's a dictionary word and it's a pattern. And like I said last week, computers are good at finding out what patterns are. We talked about malware, which is an umbrella term for any malicious software. So that could be a virus, that could be ransomware, like we talked about. And we talked about how it spreads through the internet, online media downloads, through free software. A lot of the times free software can house malicious software in it because they're trying to get you to install it, and most people make educated decisions when they install paid software, not so much free software. So just make sure you know who you're downloading from. We talked about how malware can spread through flash drives. So if you were to connect a flash drive to an infected computer, for example this one, and then bring it over to your personal one, it could transfer a virus, and that could be manually transferring one. So just be careful where you plug your flash drives and external drives into.
Can you go back to that last one? I want to
sure.
get a picture of
Go
those
get a picture.
passwords. Longer.
And we'll have a email like of all the course materials at the end, just so you guys can go over it. And I know there's a lot of information, so I'll include the most helpful information I think from this class at the end. We talked about email attachments and how you should rarely download files from them, especially if you don't know who it's from or if it's claiming to be from a company you haven't heard of before. So just be careful when it comes to that. Any questions about what we went over last week, or the refresher? Okay, perfect. So without further ado, we'll get right into internet scams and fraud. So there are actually many different types of scams, and they're classified by the agency that they're spoofing or how they're carried out. So for example, there's scams that claim to be from government agencies like the IRS, the FBI, etc. There's ones that claim to be from financial institutions, think your bank or PayPal, any type of money transfer. And then insurance company scams, donation organizations, dating sites, and of course you've probably had a phone survey or an online survey saying you've won this, fill out our survey or whatever. Everybody's gotten one of those. So speaking of phone scams, we'll go on to the first category, which was the online phone online or phone scam surveys. So you can see here, this is a real text that I got. It's a screenshot. And it says the UPS or USPS package has arrived at the warehouse. Due to an incomplete address information, we can't deliver it, blah, blah, blah. So do you see anything specifically wrong about this text? And take a second to look at it.
The last sentence.
The last sentence. This one right here?
Yeah.
Okay, yeah, they didn't use USPS there.
Well, the post office never wishes you a wonderful day. No.
That could be a sign, but the main one here is delivery. It's spelled wrong. That's not a correct spelling. It's spelled DELIVEORY. And whatever that link goes to, I don't know, but it's not spelled correctly. And if you'll notice, right before the .com, It's not USPS.com, it's delivery.com. That's something I want to mention because if you go to a website, the real address you're going to is always the word before the .com or .net or whatever it comes after it. So we're not going to USPS.com, we're going to delivery.com. So for a real world, or actually the real address I would assume for USPS's website would probably be delivery.usps.com, not usps.delivery.com, if that makes sense. And then again, obviously it's spelled wrong, and that's a good way to tell that it's fake. And the biggest way to tell that it's fake, and it's a kind of a repeating, I guess, theme throughout the presentation, is that I never had a package coming to me. That's the biggest indicator. I never ordered a package from USPS, therefore I shouldn't have an email telling me that it has incomplete address information. So just make sure you know, keep track of if you've ordered a package, and make sure you don't click on links that are spelled incorrectly or don't have the right correct company in them or something along those lines. Any questions about this? Yes.
I would say one other thing is the Postal Service will not have your email address generally.
That's good. Or phone number, yeah.
Phone number.
Yeah.
And they don't ask for your complete address, they'll just return to sender.
That's a good point. Yeah, it is a logical inconsistency here. It says they don't have complete address information. Wouldn't that include your phone number or your email address? It's a good point you made there. So just also make sure the message you get is logically consistent here, as this one doesn't seem logically consistent. Any more questions about this?
It's interesting that they use the HTTPS, so that would imply a secure website.
That would imply. So if you remember from last class, technically you can get a HTTPS website, and that would be quote-unquote secure, because it costs a few dollars for anybody to really set it up. I think you can even get them for free. But the main thing is, if you remember, official companies will usually have their name in the address bar. They'll have it'll be green text, if you remember, in the address bar. Also, again, that is a good point about the S, but the main point here is just delivery spelled wrong. And if it is a secure website, then just double check the spelling, double check the company it's going to. I also have another scam. This is in the form of a voicemail. I personally got this voicemail. I'll play it for you guys real quick, and you guys can tell me what you think is wrong with it.
Hi there. This call is to remind you that 50% discount offer on Comcast Xfinity account expires today. In order to avail the discount, please call back at 844-205-5006 from 8 a.m. to 5 p.m. Pacific Standard Time. Thank you and have a great day.
So everyone here has probably gotten a voicemail. Sounds exactly like this. Does anybody see anything specifically wrong about it? And it's harder than the last one.
It comes from Ohio, but they want you to call Pacific time.
That's the logical inconsistency. They want you to call Pacific time, comes from Ohio. And there's also another logical inconsistency. I have never ordered Xfinity or Comcast, so I shouldn't be getting this voicemail. That's just something to think about. If you ever get an email or a phone call, if you have never signed up for the service, you're probably not going to get an email or phone call from the service. You also notice, I find it interesting that they want you to call a different phone number with a different area code. It's a little strange. I don't think many companies would do that. And then, like you said, they specify Pacific time, but it's calling from Hamilton, Ohio. You can even dive deeper on this. So if we actually head over to Google over here, we can actually search what Xfinity's real phone number is. And I would recommend always searching the phone number. If somebody ever tells you to call one, always search the real company's phone number, because this is how they get you to call a call center that has people spoofing the real company. So if we scroll down here, the real phone number is 1-800-934-6489. Neither of the phone numbers that they supplied us were 1-800 numbers, and neither of them are the same number. We can even dive deeper on this I guess, deceptive voicemail. We can search Xfinity's headquarters location. You see it called us from Ohio. we can search this and see that it's they're in Philadelphia, not Hamilton, Ohio. And usually a company would either call from an 1-800 number or from their locally zoned address code. So those are a few of the logical inconsistencies in that voicemail. And of course, I never ordered Xfinity. Another telltale sign. So any questions about this voicemail or anything else you noticed fishy about it?
Don't large companies like Xfinity though have multiple phone numbers?
Yes, they do have multiple phone numbers. That is right, but again, they tend to be 1-800 phone numbers, and these. I mean, it has an area code in it, which I find strange. Again, it calls from a phone number in Ohio. It specifies specific time, and I think that, to me, that seems like an indicator that it could be an overseas phone call center, and they want you to call during their business hours overseas. Because a lot of the times they get ready for Americans to wake up, they call and leave voicemails, and they tell you to call back at the times they'll be in the call center overseas. So just be careful with these types of voicemail and text message scams. So let's move on to the next one. It's the IRS or tax scam. So a lot of the times people will try to, or companies that are spoofing the IRS will try to send you an email saying maybe you've committed tax fraud. I assume everyone here has probably not committed tax fraud. And they'll say that we're going to arrest you, or people are coming to your home, or something like that. I will tell you, the IRS is probably not going to, if it was this serious, they're probably not going to send you an email. They're probably going to send you a notice in the mail. The IRS really never sends emails. I don't think I've ever seen an IRS email. I assume many of you probably have never seen an email from the real IRS. And they're probably not, if you miss one payment, they're probably not going to email you, like say you're going to jail immediately and you gotta send us money right now. Sure, you can get in trouble, but I just don't feel like that's the wording they would use. And also, they are asking you to confirm your security by clicking here. It doesn't really make sense why they ask you to confirm your security. Does that mean Social Security? I don't know. It's not grammatically correct, or it just is asking you to confirm something that I'm not sure what it's asking you to. So first rule of thumb is never reply to these types of messages. Never give out your personal information. And I would just recommend to try not to give out any financial information over email, as email isn't the most secure way to contact. It's pretty easy to intercept an email. You can forward it to phishing@irs.gov, and that'll just allow the IRS to possibly take down the company behind these fake emails. And then never, and this goes for any of these emails, fake emails you might get, click the links or attachments, because a lot of the times these links can lead you to sites that automatically install malicious software onto your computer, or take you to a forum that pretends to be legitimate and asks you to fill out personal information when you're really not supposed to.
Is there any harm in just opening the initial email?
No, it's not very harmful to open an email. It's just harmful if you open a link.
Attachment.
Yes, the attachment.
The email itself, you wouldn't be.
Yeah, you can open an email. Just don't open the attachments or install just anything, any downloads they have. But always just delete it or forward it if you feel like you want to phishing@irs.gov. The next type of scam we'll cover is a send money scam. I've actually seen this a lot for some of my clients. Usually it's a call or an email from a friend or family member asking for money, or at least they pose as a friend or family member. They usually act desperate for financial help because they're in a different country, they're lost, stranded without a wallet, something that would require them to have money immediately. And they ask for money to be wired to a specific location. Now, the first thing is to make sure this phone call, supposedly, is coming from somebody you know, because all of our phones have caller ID nowadays, and if it's not from somebody you know, probably just don't answer it. Now, let's say hypothetically, they were calling from a payphone or something. Then the next step would be to ask something that only they would know to confirm their identity. If it's your grandson or it's a friend, most likely they have the same voice. And if maybe you can't tell, then ask them information that only they would know, and ask them why they're calling. Maybe they'll just say, I'm stuck here, but that's not a lot of context to why they're calling. And also, never give out, obviously, your information to these people. They're just asking and phishing for your information. And it's always a good rule of thumb to just not answer calls you don't know the number from, because you can get into some situations. A lot of the times these phone calls call at like 3 a.m. in the morning, just to where you're not thinking straight, and they tell you things drastically. They're yelling at you and you feel worried, and then you just make a rash, quick decision, and then you give them, $5,000, and you're out of $5,000. So make sure the person is actually the person they claim to be. Confirm with them what their situation is, and if you are absolutely convinced, I would not be like really rash and give them the money immediately. There's probably another way to do it than just send them like $5,000 over the wire. And you'll probably know, especially if like your grandson or your children are in a different country, or your friend is in a different country, stranded, you'll probably know that they're in a different country to begin with. So any questions about these types of scams? Yes.
Two things I was going to add. With AI, it's pretty easy to duplicate voice to speech. So even they might sound like that, like your relative, might even have the same speech patterns.
Yeah.
So the suggestion of asking something only that person would know is a really good one. And the other one is phone numbers can be spoofed.
Yes.
So I would, if you get something like that, even if it pops up as the person that's supposed to be calling on your ID, if they're in a panic state or something like that, tell them hang up. You'll call them right back.
That's a good point.
And you can call the number from your
Contact lists.
From your
Yeah.
contact list, not from the one that they just called from.
Yep, it's a good point. Another thing I was going to mention about this was a lot of the times they actually ask you, I know it says wire money here, a lot of the times they ask you to send money over in mail. And first of all, it's illegal to send thousands of dollars in mail. Second of all, if they were really stranded, why would they want you to send money in mail that would take a long time to get over to a third world country or a country overseas? I don't know. Doesn't seem very logically consistent. And that's an issue, like I mentioned, with a lot of these. They're not very logically consistent, or they just have really bad grammar. And that's a good point you made. Just try to, if you can confirm with the real person in your contact lists, and then call the spoof person back, or maybe they are the real person, that's a great idea. We'll move on to a foreign lottery scam. You've probably gotten a phone call that says you've won the lottery, or whatever. I'll just, as a rule of thumb here, if you never entered the lottery, you did not win the lottery. Your chances of winning the lottery if you entered are incredibly slim. If you didn't enter, no lottery is not going to give away millions of dollars. Yeah, no lottery is going to give you millions of dollars without you entering in. It just says it right here. Ignore calls and emails claiming you've won, and of course, like with all of these, never share your information. And I think this is a pretty self-explanatory one. Now we're going to move on to the survey scams. An email that prompts you to click a suspicious link to complete a survey for a prize. Now, yes, a lot of restaurants do have surveys where you can win food items, but a lot of the times people try to use that to their advantage. So if you've never entered in a food survey from a restaurant, you're probably not going to get a random one. Now, sometimes restaurants do get your email one way or another, just to send you a bunch of junk. So a few ways to confirm this is, one, check the sender address, and that goes for really all of these emails. So in this example, if it's really from McDonald's, the sender address shouldn't be a Gmail address or a Yahoo address. It should be maybe customer support or survey at mcdonalds.com, their real address, the address that they paid for. I assume they would want to use because it looks professional. Also, check the grammar in here and check the link. It says the link here is McDonald's survey poll, $150, 5-minute survey, whatever, .html. It's not a .com website. And the simplest way to explain this is an HTML is kind of a website that's frozen in time. It's not a real operating website. It's taking you to a frozen page that usually just asks you to enter in information and you give it to somebody unknowingly. And it's a really long link too. A lot of the links that people try to use for like promotions, they try to keep it short. It's a really long link. It ends in HTML, so that's just to not elaborate further. I would just say try to stay away from websites that end in .html unless you know the source, unless you know who issues that website, because a lot of the times that's an easy way to scam somebody. And of course, if it looks too good to be true, probably not a good thing to enter in. It says each person will win, taking the poll will win $250. No restaurant's going to allow each person who takes a poll to win. It's not if you take the poll, you could. It says each person will win $250. That's not real. Unfortunately, it isn't real. I wish that was real, but it's not. So just stay away from these types of scams and just send these emails to your trash or to junk. Any questions about that? Perfect. And then we have the money-making scam. A lot of the times these are advertisements on web pages, like news websites. It'll say you can win, for example here, $397 a day. And like I said in the last slide, if it sounds too good to be true, it probably is. A lot of the times these are just asking for your information. They want you to purchase a training kit or whatever. And this goes for really anything. It's actually a very common thing on social media. People will say, you know, make this amount of money a day, or you want to stay fit like I do, purchase my kit or whatever. It's just a way to sell something and to get your information. So just don't ignore these. Again, if it's too good to be true, it is. So ignore these, block the ads. There's usually a little X in the corner, and never respond to email addresses if you get them like this. And a lot of the times, this doesn't look very professional either. It's like some stock actor on a white background with a bunch of red text. It's not very professional either. It's just trying to get your attention. It's what we call clickbait. It tries to get you to click it and then fill out a form and then pay. So just stay away from these types of scams. Any questions about this slide? Perfect. The last, or one of the last slides we'll go over is a tech support scam. Now this is very, very common, and it's very, very dangerous. So a lot of the times, phony tech support calls or pop-ups will claim that there's something wrong with your account or computer. You'll even get what looks to be real pop-ups on your computer. It's actually a website. It's actually a website that usually forces your computer to enter full screen, maybe flashes at you, says, Microsoft detected an issue with your computer, gives you a phone number to call. That phone number, like I maybe mentioned earlier, is probably not the real Microsoft phone number. That's why it's good to double check phone numbers. And I would just tell you as another rule of thumb, your computer, whether it be a Windows computer, a Microsoft computer, an Android phone, or an iPhone, it'll never tell you to call a phone number. That's just something not built into computers. They don't tell you to follow up with the manufacturer. They don't tell you to call phone numbers. They only give you maybe an error code. If your computer does give you an error, it'll probably give you an error code, say an issue occurred. It won't say, call Microsoft support, we've detected something wrong with your computer. Real computers do not have that function built into them. So what I recommend if you ever get a pop-up that looks like that is for a Mac, you can press Command and Q, and that'll force the window to close. On a Windows computer, you can press Alt and F4, and that'll force a window to close. So if it's a website you can't get out of, or it's a flashing screen saying, we've detected a problem, press Alt F4 or Command Q on a Mac, and that should force the website to close, and that'll prove to you that it's a spoof, it's a fake notification. It's trying to make you think it's real. Now, if you were to call this phone number, you would probably get a call center with people saying, oh, we've detected something wrong, can we connect to your computer? This is something you should never do. You should never allow somebody over the phone or over the internet to remote control your computer. It's basically like giving the keys away to your car to some random person. You don't know what they're going to do. They have full access to your computer if you allow them to gain remote access. They'll probably tell you to install a remote access piece of software, and then they'll tell you, we're going to fix your computer for you, and they can do whatever they want at this point. They can install malware, they can steal your information, and then they can convince you that they fixed your computer, and then they'll say, give us money. And you're basically giving them money for stealing your information, or maybe they installed an actual malware on your computer, and then you might notice it the next time you use it, and then call them back, and the cycle continues. So Never give strangers access to your computer if they ask for remote assistance. Never answer or call phone numbers that show up on your computer saying there's a problem with your account or a problem with your computer software. And never allow them to demand money from you. A lot of the times they say, we fix this, you have to give us money. A lot of the times they try to guilt trip you and say, I'm going to lose my job if you don't give me money. And that's a social engineering technique. They're trying to get you to feel bad and to make another rash decision to give them money. So just never call these phone numbers. Just ignore them completely. And if you suspect something's wrong with your computer, you can take it down to the senior center on Fridays. I'm usually here. Or you can take it to Geek Squad, whatever in-person place you can take it to. It's official, and they know it's not you can't see somebody on the other end of a phone. If you go to a Geek Squad at Best Buy, you go to me, you can actually interact with me, and we can show you what we're doing and what could be wrong, if anything is wrong with your computer. So I recommend to always view somebody in person if you have an issue with technology. Any questions about this slide? Yes, sir.
You said on Windows, if you can't close a window that is open that you want to close, on the Windows computer, you press Alt and
F4. Yep, it's usually, the key usually does something else. It might be your brightness key or your volume key. But in the corner, you'll see a little F4 next to it. That stands for function 4. And if you press those keys together, it just acts as a way to force shut any window. And like I said, for Macs, that's going to be the command key and the Q key at the same time.
One other question. If you initiate the contact with a company that you trust, whether it's like McAfee or a VPN company or whatever, and you're having an issue and they suggest remoting in, and you're confident that you know who you're talking to, is that?
If you're confident, like I said, as long as you know the phone number is from the actual company and you're confident the person you're talking to is actually a representative of one of those companies, it's okay to do that. Now, if you think something's funny is going on and somebody is doing something weird on your computer, usually if they black out your screen and they're controlling your computer, that's a good way to tell if they're doing something malicious. Because if somebody's just with good intentions controlling your computer remotely, they'll show you what they're doing.
Yeah.
But if they black out the screen, which is what a lot of scammers do, so you can't see what they're doing, then that's the time just to completely force shut off your computer. You can do that by just pressing and holding the power button for an amount of time, and if that doesn't work, just unplug it at that point, because you don't know what they're doing on there if they black out the screen. And they could be installing harmful software, they could be stealing your information. So if they ever do that, I would just shut it off. Or if you think something fishy is going on, then I would shut it off. And at that point, when you open the computer or turn the computer on, you'd have to uninstall that remote software, because I don't know if they would save your information so they can connect to it again. And if that's something you can't do, if you don't know how to uninstall a program, then you can take it to somebody at Geek Squad or to me. But as long as it's a company you trust and you have the phone number to back it up, you know the phone number is real, then I would say, as long as you're confident, to go ahead. But as a rule of thumb, like I said, I tend to like to people meet in person, because it's just more transparent that way. It's easier to see what somebody's doing. Any other questions for this slide? Perfect. So we're going to move on to the dating scam. So I don't know if anybody here is dating, or using online dating, but it's a very common way to get information out of people. Because obviously, when you're dating somebody, you are giving information out, because that's how you kind of initiate a relationship. It's exchange of information. So if you are online dating and somebody's starting to ask you for money, probably a time to stop. Even if they are a good intentioned person, if they're asking you for money without even, and you haven't even met the person, they're probably not the best person to start a relationship with in the first place. But that's usually what they do. They just build a relationship. It's social engineering. It's trying to manipulate somebody, not by using software or malware, by using their brains and saying, we have this great relationship going, but I need money. And they try to guilt trip you into giving them money. So, and this goes for, it could be a dating scam, could just be any other type of scam, maybe a friend or something. So just be careful who you contact online, and if you do want to date online, always meet the person. Meet the person in a well-lit area, public place, if you're going to date online or meet online, because you want to know who you're talking to is really the person you're talking to. Because online you can set a profile picture, set a fake name up. You don't need to supply your ID for a lot of these sites. You can, but you don't have to. And then you got some random person posing as somebody else. So if you do want to meet somebody, obviously be careful, because you're meeting somebody you don't know in public. So meet in a well-lit area, a public place, and then you can go from there if it's really the person you're talking to. If they don't want to meet, then it's probably time to cut the relationship, or if they ask for money, it's time to stop. Or if they ask for information, like if they start asking for a lot of information, it's probably a sign that they're trying to get information out of you. They're trying to initiate phishing techniques. Any questions about this here? Perfect. Let's move on to charity scam. Oh,
I will
actually.
say one thing. I'm a case manager for Ethra and work with the elderly population. I've had at least 2 or 3 clients fall for that specific scam.
Mm-hmm.
And one of the reasons why those scammers get away with it is because it's embarrassing. I fell for it.
Yeah.
So I actually had one client that I was talking to her about it, and she got so upset at me, so mad at me, she didn't talk to me for 6 months.
Mm.
And I was the one providing services for her. So if, for some reason, even if you are forewarned, it's still something you can fall for. The best thing I can say is, if for some reason you do fall for it, don't hesitate to go to the police.
Yeah.
This is something that is, that particular scam, the Sweetheart scam, is extremely prevalent and extremely lucrative. And they thrive on secrecy and embarrassment.
Yeah,
So-
that's a good point. And they take advantage of people, lonely people, and it's kind of sad. They take advantage of people like that. And you mentioned to call the police, and that's a good thing to do for a lot of these. I mean, it's not just, an internet scam. These are crimes. All of these things are crimes. They're legitimate things people can get arrested for, especially when it deals with money. If somebody steals your money online, it's not just, oh no, it's my fault. It's a crime. Somebody manipulated you or got into your system, so you can call the non-emergency line or contact the police in some way and then get a hold of them, because that is a crime, and you shouldn't be afraid to contact somebody about it. And sometimes to get your money back. Not all the time, but it's possible, because the internet was never designed for privacy in mind. Now it's adapted, and then people are becoming more private online, but the whole point of the internet was everybody's connected. The whole point of the internet was a bunch of computers and colleges that were connected to share information. It wasn't supposed to be private, so a lot of the things people do online, crimes specifically, can be traced, and that's a good thing to remember if you ever are a victim of identity theft or stolen money. Another type of scam is a man-in-the-middle scam. I'm not going to go too in-depth with this one. It's a little complicated. Essentially, it's an attacker who is between 2 legitimate parties, who's intercepting the information you send. So if you're talking to maybe tech support, a legitimate tech support person, somebody in the middle of that conversation could sneak in and start intercepting messages and possibly changing what they say. Now, this is not very common, not that much, because a lot of messages are what they call encrypted. You've probably heard the word before, which means somebody can't grab the information when it's traveling to another computer. So it's not something to worry about all the time. But if you're talking to a legitimate person and they start asking for information or going off of the subject line, it's probably maybe an idea that somebody could be intercepting the messages and sending you a different message, if that makes sense. I know it's a little complicated, it's a little hard to explain, but if that makes sense to everybody, does anybody have any questions about this?
How would you identify that?
Just if the messages, if you're speaking to a tech support person or somebody, if the messages start increasingly asking for more personal information, doesn't seem related to the topic, that could be a sign of it. If the person is using different wording than the person you're talking to before, that could be a sign of it. But like I said earlier, a lot of text messages or online messages are encrypted. Like I said, means they can't be intercepted, so it's not too big of a problem. But if you do notice something fishy, then it would be probably time to end that conversation, if that answers your question. Perfect. So we talked about a lot of scams, and we talked about what they're trying to get, your information. Now, if the unthinkable happens and you are a subject of identity theft, you shouldn't be embarrassed, like we talked about. You shouldn't be, hide it away. Like I said, 47% of Americans have experienced identity theft. So that's almost half of America. That is millions upon millions of people. So the first thing you should do is contact the organization where you suspect your information's been stolen from. So your bank, for example, you should contact them immediately. In fact, if you suspect your identity has been stolen at all, that's the first person you should talk to is your bank, because that's what they're after, your money, your assets. So if you contact your bank and tell them, hey, I think my identity is stolen, they can most likely freeze your assets or make it really hard for somebody to take a large amount of money out. That's a good thing to do, because that's the first thing people go after. So contact your bank, tell them, I think my identity has been stolen. The next thing to do would be to report identity theft to the FTC. So that's just, to do that, you have to go to identitytheft.gov, and they'll walk you through how to report it and file a claim. And then after that, you just have to see what happens from there, really. Just make sure you tell your bank, tell your financial institutions, tell anything that really has a big impact on your identity. You could tell the DMV about your driver's license, something along those lines. Cancel your cards. It's just a good precaution to do, just to keep your money and your assets safe. And then after that, you just file a report with the identitytheft.gov, and from there they should contact you and be able to handle it with you. And I have a quick video to show you just to elaborate further on this topic, so I'm going to play that now.
Yet another data breach is making headlines, and this time, your information is exposed. What should you do? First, take a deep breath. Then, visit identitytheft.gov/data breach. You'll learn what specific steps to take. For example, if your social security number was exposed, you'll want to order your free credit reports and check for accounts you don't recognize. If a company affected by a data breach offers you free services, like credit monitoring or identity theft insurance, take advantage of it. You also might want to place a credit freeze or fraud alert. That'll make it harder for an identity thief to open new accounts in your name. If you find that someone is using your information to commit fraud, identitytheft.gov can help you report that too. Find out how to recover from a data breach at identitytheft.gov/data breach.
Okay, so yes.
This topic, a great question. How do you know, like, I've received letter, correspondence in the mail regarding being a notification of a data breach, and it's like from a third party. I take that to be a hoax, and I feel uncomfortable signing up for what they're promoting, because I question, how do I know that's truly been a data breach or not? So how would you?
So I actually have a great resource I'm going to show in the next slide. Before I get to that, if a company suffers a data breach, which basically means their information was stolen by some sort of malicious actor, and the information was basically released online or maybe sold to somebody to get the information or sell it to somebody else. A lot of the times the company they're legally required to disclose that through an email or a letter you get in the mail. And like the video mentioned, a lot of the times they'll give you free credit monitoring for a month or for a year. It's just so if you ever, third parties I don't think tend to send you like legitimate. They
Like
can't
representing
representing.
who's been the breach.
I think I'm not.
And I question that, Jim.
That's a good thing to question. It's always good to be question things you have to enter your information into. I'm pretty sure the company themselves has to send you a message. I don't think they go through a third party. I think they have to go directly to you. Now they may give you access to free third-party services like Experian or something like that, but they're not going to come. These notifications are not going to come from a third party. They're going to come from the first party, the person who was affected. Now, the resource I have is really great. It's called Have I Been, no, pwned is a internet slang term. It basically means compromised, and that is PWNED. And the website is haveibeenpwned.com, haveibeenpwned.com. And it's a great resource because you can, I'll show you the website in a minute, but you can enter your email address or phone number, and then it'll tell you if your phone number or email address has been in a known data breach, has been attacked, has been leaked. So has everybody copied that email down, or not email, excuse me, the address down? Perfect, okay. So let me head over to that website and show you guys. So this is what the website looks like. I double checked it, made sure it's secure. Your email address is secure with them. So if you enter your email address, so I can type in mine real quick, it'll tell you at the top if it's been affected or not. So if I type this in, it says it has not been affected, and it's with a green lettering there. Now if I enter an address that I know that has been affected, thankfully this is not mine, this has been around for a long time though. I spelled that wrong, hold on. Well, apparently it's not showing up, but basically it would tell you the data breach that has been in. It'll tell you what's exposed or what they believe to be exposed. And if it doesn't show up, you can always go over here to who's been pwned, and it'll show you all the data breach clients they have saved into their database. So for example, if we go down here, 8 Tracks, it's an online service, it's a playlist service for music. They suffered a data breach which impacted 18 million accounts. In their disclosure, they advised that so basically your email address was linked. If you was signed up for this service and you're part of the breach, your email address may have been leaked. Now that's not actually that bad, because some data breaches leak your social security number, all of your contact information, your address. So that's not too bad, but it's still concerning. And if this does happen, of course, if it's identity theft and has your social security number, that's the time to file a report about that. But also, it's time to change your passwords on all of your accounts. It doesn't matter if it's not.
How often do you do that?
What was that?
How often do you change passwords?
Well, they recommend 6 to 12 months. I personally would recommend about a year to 2 years. As long as if the password's secure and it's complicated enough, it's not extremely important to change it every year or two. But if you have been compromised, it's extremely important to change your password. Even if it's from an unrelated account, like a Google account or something, change those passwords. And never, I said this in the last class, but never have the same password for all of your accounts. And that reason is because if somebody were to compromise your Google account, if that password's the same, they may try it on, let's say, a Bank of America's website. And now they have access to your bank. And now they can go over to your Facebook account. Now they have access to your Facebook account with all your personal photos. Now they can go over to iCloud and get access to all your iCloud photos. It's the slippery slope. If all of your passwords are the same, all of your accounts can be unlocked with one password. And all somebody has to do is find that one password. So especially if your passwords are all the same, I would recommend that you change them now, or at least add we talked about password extensions on the end. So for example, for a Gmail account, you could add GMA at the end of a password, like a base password you could set, and then add an extension to it like GMA for Gmail or FAC for Facebook. That'll make them different, but not hard to remember. So change your passwords if you notice your account's been breached through an email, through a letter, or through this website. And hopefully everybody has this copied down. I'll send a copy of this in the email on the final class. But it's a great resource, and it shows you the largest data breaches too. And you can see Facebook had a data breach where 509 million people's accounts were leaked. It's a lot of people. that just shows you how many people can be leaked from a data breach. So it's important to make sure you keep up to date with that. Make sure to check your email address for your email account for notices from companies, and always be aware of this. And again, if it happens, first thing you got to do, change your password. If it includes your social security number, they probably should change, or not change that, but you should probably go to the identitytheft.gov website and figure that out. And again, all of these email addresses, this website, and letters you get from the companies will disclose what they believe to have been stolen from their website or their servers. And one more thing about data breaches, I know I've talked about this for a little bit, that they don't always lead to something. Sometimes this data is stolen, it just sits there, nothing happens. And that's just sometimes how it happens. We don't know why that happens. People just, I guess, don't sell it. Nobody buys it for the price they sell it for. Not important. You know, people have stolen accounts from math websites. It's not that important. Like, for example, one of the emails I used to use, I used it to sign up for a math website. It was compromised. Nothing ever came of that. Nobody ever sold that information because login details to a math website aren't as valuable as login details to Facebook, because Facebook has more information than a math website, something along those lines, if that makes sense. Yes.
What entity maintains that website? Who pays for all that research to put all that up there? It's not a government, it's not a .gov.
Well, all of these data breaches are put into public notice. Once they happen, or once the scale of these data breaches are figured out, they release it. They have to, I'm pretty sure, legally. Now, sometimes they wait months. They try to delay the inevitable information as long as possible, which I think is a really bad practice, because those months are just time for people to sell the information to log into your accounts, so that's not a good thing, but there's nothing you can really do about that. But all of this information is released by the companies. This is just a website that collects all of that information and consolidates it. I think it's a nonprofit. Yeah, in fact, it has a donate section right here, and you can find.
Okay.
Yeah, I can actually. Microsoft Regional Director. So yeah.
Okay, well, that makes sense, because I was, wondering who's in charge of it, because it's got to cost some money to.
It costs money to run. It's for donation. You can donate to it if you want, but yeah, it's a really nice resource. So let's move on to online shopping. So everyone here, or most people here, probably shop online. It's really useful, but of course, everything on the internet is ruined by people who want to make it harder to use to steal your information. So some rules of thumb: use reputable retailers to avoid the risk of being sold counterfeit. Basically, stick to Amazon, to stores like Walmart, Target, stuff like that. Just stick to those. And I would be hesitant to venture out to other websites because you don't know their policies, and you can basically find anything on Amazon. There's really no limit to what you can find on there. Don't believe all the reviews you read online. Be careful when you read reviews. A lot of the times, companies will put fake reviews out to make you think a product's good or they're legit. A lot of times that's not true. So it's always be careful if a product has like really few reviews but a lot of 5-star reviews. A lot of times that's just self-promoting and somebody rating themselves highly. Be careful of additional fees, which can significantly raise the prices of products. So when on that checkout page that every website has, it'll give you a list of the taxes, the fees, and you can see if they add any additional ones and double check that. I missed this one in the middle, but it says be wary of shopping from shady websites. Like I mentioned earlier, just stick to the main ones you would consider. Read the site's privacy policy. Now that's going to be that really, really small text at the bottom here, and you can read all about their wonderful privacy policy, which is a lot of text that a website has. It's a ton of text, because it's basically covering them if they do anything, or if your information's given out, or even if they steal your credit card, they could legally say that we can do this or whatever. Obviously, they get in trouble for that, but always check the privacy policy. If you do plan to buy from a website you've never bought from before or never heard from, I know it's probably tedious, but try to read that privacy policy and see what information they retain. Because a lot of times, a lot of websites retain a lot of information about you to market to you, to sell it to third parties. So be careful of that. And beware of providing financial information while using an unprotected connection or device. We touched on this last week. If you're in a public place, public Wi-Fi that has no password, or for example, Starbucks, you go there, tons of people have access to that Wi-Fi. Tons of people can see what you're transferring over that Wi-Fi. It's a good rule of thumb to not put financial information over it. You can use cell service. That's a good thing to do if you have unlimited data. Cell service is a lot more secure than using Wi-Fi on a public network. Now, there's a guest network here. The public one here is Knox County. It has no password. The guest network here is like WKSC guest. The password is on that little bulletin board back there if you wanted to connect to it later. It's in the top right. But just be careful what connections you use, and if you are ever unsure about if your connection is secure to Wi-Fi, you can go up to your little Wi-Fi settings. On a Mac, it's just going to be in the corner. And if you see a lock next to it, that means it's secure. You can see the Knox County one does not have a lock next to it. It means it's an unsecured network. So if you're going to shop online, put your credit card over the internet. Do it at home, on cell service, or on a private network, not on a public one. Any questions about these rules right here?
For online shopping, whether it's Amazon or a different company, can you trust a verified purchaser review? I mean, that seems like it would indicate that it's somebody who's bought that and it's a real review.
Yes.
How do you know that they didn't just put verified purchaser?
Well, usually, for those of you who aren't aware, Amazon's relatively new. It just shows you a little badge at the top next to somebody's review. It says verified purchaser. I don't think there's a way to get that tag without actually have bought. But yeah, it's usually reliable, and it's just good to read all of the reviews and just get a sense of what you're buying, or the website and its practices. So, any more questions about that? Perfect. So we have a few activities here. So here's one. You receive the following email. How can you verify its legitimacy? I don't know if you guys can read that. I can read it out if you need to, but everybody see that okay? Okay. And once you think you know what's wrong with this, then you can go ahead and let me know.
Top says Foundation for Helping Veterans and the bottom Foundation of Helping Veterans.
Yep, there's a logical inconsistency, or just a general inconsistency. Of course, an actual foundation or an actual company is going to make sure they look professional and keep the same name across, keep the same branding across their own email. What else do you guys see wrong about this? Anybody have an idea?
Email address.
Yes. So apparently, the Foundation of Helping Veterans has a representative with an email address, rockysal.man@gmail.com. Doesn't sound very professional. It's not their website. In fact, they don't list a website on here at all. So most charities are going to list a website. Not most. All legitimate charities are going to have a website, because that's how you can see what they do. That's how you can donate to them. This one does not. Also, you can see the wording is a little strange. It kind of seems like they're begging you to donate to them. It's not just a simple request. It sounds like they're desperate and saying that, do you really care about these people? That's a wording that I don't think many actual donation organizations would use. The Red Cross is going to say, do you really care? Because if you do, you're going to donate to us. It's not how they phrase their emails. Also, it's very convenient that the PayPal button is like the only thing like prominent about this email. It's just donate to us, and they give you a PayPal button. How much are you donating? I don't know. Just click the link and find out, I guess. It's not very professional. And most organizations are going to want you to donate through their website. Yes, PayPal can be an option on a website, but usually you go to the website first, you select the amount, select if you want to have it reoccurring, select if you want to send it to a specific operation. For example, if a hurricane hits, you can dedicate the money to a hurricane, whatever. This is just saying, give us money, here's a link to give us money. Not professional. Also, you can just look up the foundation and see what the internet has to say about it, if it even exists. Because again, you pointed out the logical consistency. This is Foundation of Helping Veterans, Foundation for Helping Veterans. Just kind of a little fishy, doesn't seem correct. So that's the main things wrong with this email. I think there were some grammatical issues with this one. I have to read through it again, but it's just not very professional, not what a real email would be like. In fact, I can probably just find a real email on here. So like for example, here is a Red Cross email that I received. You can scroll through all of this. It gives you actual information. It gives you a few paragraphs of information, and then it tells you, here's you can donate this. And there is a button here that says donate monthly, but if we click on it, it goes to a website, on this other screen here, but it goes to a website, not just a PayPal button. This, like I said, you can choose recurring, the amount. It's professional. And you got a bunch of legal text down here as well at the very bottom. If you don't see this legal text, it's probably not a legitimate email as well. Because this is just telling you where they're, so for example, it gives us where they're located. It gives us foundations they're associated with. It gives us subscribe and unsubscribe options. It's professional. It lets you know what the corporation or the organization does and how they help people. Not just saying, if you care, you're going to donate to us. If that makes sense. And I think that was pretty obvious as well, just making sure I go over all of it for you. So any questions about this activity? Perfect, okay. And this slide is just giving an example of what was wrong with it. Also, actually that's a good point. And then if you do decide to donate to a charity, they're going to email you a receipt. They're going to send you a receipt and tell you what you paid for and how you paid for it. So, any questions? Perfect. So, let's go on here. There we go. Here's your fourth activity. So, you can go ahead and read that. It says you receive a frantic phone call in the middle of the night from your grandson while he's traveling internationally. His belongings were stolen. Let's see here. And he's stranded without any money. He's in trouble and he needs your help urgently. There's no time to think. Okay? Let's see what his instructions are. So he wants you to send $5,000 in cash. It must be sent via FedEx. Okay. I would say that's a red flag, but I'm not sure about you. And then you can continue to read. It says cash should be divided into envelopes, then placed between the pages of a magazine. A mailing address that he urged you to note down. A quick hang up. There's no explanation. You need to act now. Now, believe it or not, this is a very common scam, and it works a lot of the time. And like I said, they call you at night. They get you when you're not thinking through things. If you really think through this, and for this it's really simple, $5,000 in cash sent through the mail. Like we said earlier, he needs help urgently, apparently. He's going to wait for FedEx to ship overseas. It'll take like 5 days. That's not urgent. Cash should be divided into envelopes then placed between the pages of a magazine. Like I said, it's illegal to send that amount of money through the mail. That's why they're hiding it. A mailing address that he urges you to note down quickly, getting you to be frantic, to make rash decisions. A quick hang up, there's no explanation. If it was really your grandson, I think he'd probably stay on the phone with you just to have somebody to talk to in this apparently urgent situation. Which doesn't make a lot of logical sense. And sometimes they'll say that they need to have the cash divided between magazines and hidden because the government will try to take it, like the foreign government will. It's not true. First of all, our government will hold the mail there because it has like $5,000 in it. Seems pretty fishy to me. That's what, so USPS won't even post that if they find the money in that. And I think this is pretty self-explanatory. Any questions about this? Perfect. Okay.
I would say that nowadays that scam usually involves gift cards.
Yes, that's a good point. I think that was mentioned. I don't know if it was mentioned last class. That's a good point he brings up. Gift card scams. You probably even see notices in grocery stores now. I want you to buy a bunch of gift cards with a bunch of money on them and send them. Why? Because gift cards aren't traceable. They're not tied to a name usually. And so at that point, if you load a bunch of gift cards, let's say they're Best Buy gift cards, load like $5,000 on them, you send those off, there's no getting those back. they don't have a name attached to them. They're gift cards. So that's why it's very important to not pay somebody in gift cards. And again, it's not logically consistent. If somebody needed cash urgently, why would you pay them in gift cards that probably don't work overseas anyways? Just the biggest way to avoid these social engineering techniques is just to think through the situation. Just use logic. A lot of these are very illogical situations they bring up. So we have a fifth activity to do. It says, let's see, here we go. So it says, I think this is a real transcript from a real phone call. So we can go ahead and read through this. Let me know if you see anything wrong with this. Now, it does seem a little strange. So first, it's logically inconsistent. So they say they're suing him because he owes money. Can the IRS even sue somebody? I don't know. I don't think they would sue you. I don't think it's the path they would take if you actually owed $3,400 in unpaid taxes. Second of all, you probably know if you owe $3,400 in unpaid taxes because it's a large number. And it's just some random phone call, and they don't give any like information. They just say, we're suing you. It's the IRS. You owe us $3,400. If you pay the amount, if you fail to pay the amount immediately, we'll send the police to your house with an arrest warrant. No, they won't. This is not going to happen. Just the main way to tell this is because the IRS is probably not going to call you. They usually give you give you stuff in the mail. They don't email or call. And if you really are in this much trouble, the police are just going to show up anyways. They're not going to you're not going to give you a fair warning and say they're suing you. They're just going to show up. And again, you probably know if you owe $3,400 in unpaid taxes. That's not like a small error. That's a pretty large amount. So any questions about this? This is our last slide today. So any questions about the class, about what we're going to be doing next class? Any resources you might want to be added to my resources packet that I send out? Perfect. I think you guys did pretty well figuring out all the inconsistencies and flaws with some of the examples I gave you, and that's great. Just for what we're going to be doing next week, we'll be going over Social Security safety, security resources, and review activity, as well as a question and answer session. So, if nobody else has any questions, I think we can let the class out today. You guys did great. Like I said, you guys figured out almost immediately what was wrong with those examples. I had some classes who didn't immediately figure it out. So you guys are definitely on top of things. By the end of this class, you'll be cybersecurity experts. So, thank you guys. Thank you everybody for coming.
Certificates.
Yep. We need to get certificates for you guys.
If you book a hotel, make sure that you added stuff on the hotel. If they quote $130 a night, by the time you're done, it could be $150 or $60.
Yeah.
Added add-on fees. But it's legitimate, but it'll get you if you don't.
It will. They hide. That's a good point. They hide fees. A lot of people do that. Like you said, even legitimate companies do that. So just double check.
Airlines do that.
Oh yeah. I know people who want to fly Spirit Airlines, which is a bad idea.